Good day, everyone. Welcome to my presentation together with my co-researchers, dear Nkomo, Delta Monisi Sivalo, and it's entitled Towards Lexicographic Resources on Zimbabwean Traditional Food and Food Systems. So let's get started with our introduction. Basically, this paper considers a lexicographic dimension for the project, the African Food Revolution, with the focus on Zimbabwean traditional food systems and also African food systems. The paper addresses aspects of secondary lexicographic and dictionary-specific lexicographic processes. This is according to Gores and Prinsloo, 2005. Situating the project in the context of Zimbabwean and African lexicography in general, and this takes into note the gap that exists in this dimension we are following. So, what is this African food revolution? Basically, the African food revolution is movement that seeks to promote and develop traditional food systems. So its main aim is to amplify food production in African villages, and this is through the use of scientific acumen and various food commodities in the village. And one of the most critical things that is important is the documentation. And this documentation involves the lexicography. So with the African food revolution, there's been a dimension. We've realized that there's been an increase in social media presence. So what has happened is that we, as the African food revolution, the movement, we've taken advantage of social media and we've managed to put different foods, traditional foods, onto different platforms, for instance, Facebook, Instagram, and these have helped a lot in documenting traditional foods that could have gone extinct if we hadn't followed this drive. So this is the second dimension where we document the lexicography of our African food, which we feel is very, very important in the development of African food. And then in the initial stage of conceptualizing, we got to three categories in differentiation in our dictionaries. So we saw that we need one for infant and junior primary school learners, which is ETC to grade 3. Secondly, we need senior primary school level learners and teachers, which is grade 4 to grade 7. And then the third one is a more diverse adult user group, which includes the Zimbabwean nationals, includes also foreign nationals, it also includes teachers, lecturers, and basically foodies, which includes chefs and village elders and village heads and the villagers themselves. So, what was the context and motivation for this lexicographic project? So the project comes after a collaborative initiative between various stakeholders, including Amagugu International Heritage, which is involved in documentation and promotion of cultural aspects, and then also various academia who are there in Zimbabwe who show common interest in documentation and promotion of traditional African food systems. So we aim to collect, document, and explain, illustrate different traditional food systems such as food cookware, food production, preservation processes in a dictionary format. So we continue with the context of motivation. We'll realize that in Zimbabwe there's a huge gap in the language, knowledge, and language associated with the Zimbabwean traditional food and food systems. The dictionaries that are contemplated in this project fall under the typology of subject field dictionaries, such as dictionaries. Such dictionaries are rare in African languages, with lexicography still grappling with general purpose bilingual and monolingual dictionaries. So as we continue again, you realize that Ompusa and Ndinga Komba Pinza in 2015 quoted that a culinary dictionary in an African language hardly exists. So this is different from other Eurocentric languages. For instance, when you search for food dictionaries in English, you get a number of them. So as you look at Oxford, the work they've done, we have common dictionaries, common food dictionaries. For instance, a dictionary of diet and exercise, the Diner's dictionary, which is another one, food and nutrition dictionary, the Oxford Companion to Food by Alan Davidson, sugar and sweets dictionary. So these are dictionaries that are based on food cultures. And then you can also see that in Italy, also it follows the same thing. They also have their food dictionaries, which document regional food. They show pronunciation of the words. They document how, where, and how the food comes from. Still continuing with the motivation, we'll realize that African cuisine is slowly rising due to globalization. So you realize that there's an increase in African restaurants across the world. This is because people are migrating for greener pastures, and they have this nostalgia where they have to consume their own food. And what happens is that these foods are normally prepared in the traditional way, and they are named in the traditional names. So the lexicographic project is important in documenting these foods and having a standard for their description. So this proposed lexicographic project will advance African food revolution's endeavor to promote and preserve the knowledge around Zimbabwean traditional food and food systems. So, excuse me. As we develop food systems, we are promoting a spirit of national consciousness, conservation, and ownership of national heritage. So, when we talk about traditional food, we're talking about indigenous African food, which is characterized by a diverse range of consumables, which we'll describe as we go along with the presentation. So this contemplative paper identifies and motivates for a few food dictionaries, which will draw content from Zimbabwe traditionals. The potential users of these proposed dictionaries will be identified and profiled together with the situations in which they might benefit from the proposed dictionaries. So we have to delineate the scope of the Zimbabwe culinary traditions, considering that we've got 16 official languages, and then within those 16 official languages, we've got different culinary trends, which we'll discuss as we go on with the presentation. So when you look at the traditional aspect of food in Zimbabwe, there's one specific dish which is Stwala Sata or pap, polenta in Italy, thick porridge, some people will call it. So this is a dish which connects the whole of Zimbabwe, and we are looking at that since it's connecting different ethnicities, ethnic groups, it is an important part of the lexicographic project. In this lexicographic project, we'll also differentiate. We have what we term traditional cereals, such as sorghum, pearl millet, finger millet, to name a few, which haven't been properly documented. So this project will benefit the documentation and development and conservation of traditional African food systems. So how many dictionaries do we need to communicate with the rest of the world? Right. So the dictionary use, while the cognitive function will prevail for the dictionary, products targeting different user groups, the user needs, will vary according to user profiles, particular their existing knowledge and their potential knowledge gaps. Then the different dictionaries that we've identified, we've got the infant dictionary, the senior primary school dictionary, and the diverse, which we call the adult dictionary. So begin with the food dictionary for infants. So children will be taught a number of names of different types of food, methods of producing, preserving food, as indicated in the country's indigenous languages junior syllabus, MOPSI 2015. So the food-related topics will be from the heritage studies. Then things to be covered, numerous themes that we've identified: indigenous fruits, traditional cereals, kitchen utensils, underground troopers, insects, milk products. Those are some of the themes we've highlighted. Then we'll look at fruits. Generally, when we look at fruits, we'll see that there are some fruits that are there in urban setups and that are there in the village setups. So these fruits will be there in this dictionary that we've proposed. So as we can see, those are some common fruits that we get in Zimbabwe, which are found in both urban and rural setups. So the school curriculum, we have to look at the school curriculum. Zimbabwe's curriculum framework from primary, secondary schools provides for the use of the country's officially recognized language for ECD and junior education phases as a medium of instruction, as well as English throughout primary education. So we have different dictionaries for different levels. Therefore, a series of dictionaries can be produced for the different geographic and cultural groups. So this will allow for provision of knowledge related to food using respective languages for lemmatization and description. So we will also look at introducing bilingual dictionaries, which is probably Isindebele to English, Shona to English, just to mention a few. So we also have to balance between the alphabet and the thematic ordering. So the food dictionaries for infant and junior learners will also adopt a hybrid arrangement of lemmata, balancing between alphabet and thematic ordering. So we also look at food dictionaries for senior and primary schools, which have micro issues and micro issues. So with this dictionary, we are basically expanding from the infant and junior learners dictionary. But with this one, we're looking at the heritage studies, and we're proposing expanding the scope of the knowledge of the Zimbabwean food and food systems. So we have macrostructural issues. The proposed dictionaries for the senior primary school level need to include all types of lemata that have been proposed for infant and junior learners. However, the conceptual and linguistic coverage needs scope would need to expand. And then we have topics that we've identified that we covered from grade 4 to 7, which are conservation of natural resources, barter trade, food preservation, indigenous methods of manufacturing, insect rearing, regenerative farming, just to mention a few. And then we have the microstructural issues, which is one, a paraphrase of the meaning in the lemmatizing language, an English translation equivalent or a clause where possible, a paraphrase of meaning in English, and illustration where appropriate. So a comprehensive microstructure, whereas visual illustrations are proposed to be the main feature in the proposed infant and junior dictionary, the users at the senior primary level need to be cognitive of information from the dictionaries through paraphrases of meaning. Then this comprehensive dictionary will have professionals, students, lecturers. It's just holistically foodies, chefs. So the ultimate dictionary, this is for the adults, will be a comprehensive encyclopedia, which will be more advanced, diverse to Zimbabwean and non-Zimbabweans. It will be used generally in colleges, universities, various institutes. So the viability of the project, when we look at the viability of the project, we see that it's looking good. We're looking at the collaborations between different stakeholders. We're using referencing from other cultures like the Italian culture, the French culture, the English culture. We're looking at government support from the government, which has shown interest in developing indigenous languages. We're looking at conservation efforts. Recently, there's a drive to preserve local biomes and local languages, according to the United Nations and UNESCO. So, in conclusion, this paper has outlined a broad preliminary framework within which dictionary-specific lexicographic processes will be elaborated for the prospective dictionaries, the intention being to make available and accessible knowledge that is in danger of extinction. And those are our references. Thank you for attention, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.